Welcome to Watching Code Office Hours session number 85. The purpose of these office hours is to help you as you're going through anything on watchingcode.com. So if you get stuck with anything, you can just ask me directly. And also, some of the students are here too, and they can help out as well. So the whole point is if you are stuck with anything on Watching Code and you want to get help and want to keep going, we're here as a resource for you to do that. So just have a couple announcements before we go into the questions and discussion. The first thing is you'll want to join the Facebook group to get information just generally about Watching Code, but also about upcoming office hour sessions. So for example, there might be the holidays are coming up, so there might be some last minute schedule changes. And so just good information to know if you're interested in Watching Code and especially if you're interested in the office hours. So you join that right here. Oh, and then you can access this Google document. If you're watching the live stream, you can get here by um, going underneath the live stream. There's going to be a link to it right here at the bottom, and you can get all the links in the Google document. So that's it about on Facebook. The next thing is if you have a question, you'll want to call in and ask the question. I do sometimes look at the live chat, but not reliably. I often miss things. So if you ask a question here, I might not see it. So you wanna call into the Google Hangout, and the link is right there for you to get into the Hangout. So that's it for me. I'm not gonna announce new stuff that I'm working on right now because my estimates have been very bad. So so I'll wait until I've released them and then I'll let you all know. But hopefully you'll hear something good soon. So no updates from me on upcoming stuff at the moment, but I am working on it and I am slow. So stay patient. Um, so that's it for me. So from here, we'll go ahead and go into open questions. And I'll try to ask people in the order that they called in. And so we'll start with Adil. Adil, are you there?
Hey everyone. Yes, I have no questions. I've just been I'm just revisiting previous videos, especially on practical JavaScript, just to sort of just to be able to make sure I'm on top of things there. So yeah, there's no real questions, but yeah, it's just a case of just trying not to forget stuff, really.
Okay. And so, Azil, when you're going back and reviewing things in practical JavaScript, where are you putting your energy towards? Are there specific concepts that you're you're looking at more deeply than others, or you're paying more attention to?
Yeah, there's I revisited the this keyword, and then because of that, I also then just wanted to make sure I understood the difference between higher order functions and callbacks. There were a few videos um, uh, that touched on those with the um, uh, uh, the event is listener higher order functions along with the event handling callbacks. So yeah, it was just really trying to get a sense of when an event listener is placed in the HTML and when it might be placed in this JavaScript file, and why that might be, what kind of trade-off might be underlying that, and so it's just so yeah, it's just generally just got me. It's just been really going through those things and trying to. I think yeah, these I think are sort of they all set of questions that I'm sure that will be answered in due course. I think the more examples I come across, I think.
Mhm.
So so yeah, they're sort of yeah. I've made mental notes of all these questions. So um, so I'm looking uh, as then the more I go forward with the videos, I'm sure there'll be more. There'll be some clarity thrown on those. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's it's interesting because the organization of practical JavaScript and the first of the uh, set of videos in the premium course, the which is the to do MVC written in jQuery. The organizational structure of is somewhat different, so it's interesting to see that kind of variation and to sort of see something quite differently organized. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of these different kind of trade-offs between different ways of organizing things uh, will yeah, I'm sure they'll come up again um, and the kind of thinking around approaching those trade-offs will be clarified.
Mhm. Yeah, a couple notes for you to help you in your. It looks like you're just reviewing to get more comfort with things. You can do the n-1 or n missing features exercise, which I think I mentioned to you. So for people that are listening, delete every combination of one feature, and then go through all that, and then every combination of two features, and then so for example, if you have three features like add to do, delete, edit, then delete, add to do, and then try to rebuild it or try to fix it, and then add it back, and then delete, like edit, and then try to make it work again, and then delete the third thing, and then try to make it work again. And then you can do delete combinations of two, like delete the first two, and then try to make it work again, and so on. I think that's really helpful. The other thing you can do, a deal, and we talked about this too, is for this keyword, you can just almost in every single line of the code. It doesn't matter if you're in a function or not. It doesn't matter if the function uses this or not. You should be able to tell and describe what this is and why and what case is relevant.
Yeah,
So there's not. That's the most probably exhaustive review you could do for this keyword. And then the last thing you can do is you can actually, this is kind of reviews the first module in Premium and kind of forces you to review practical JavaScript as well. You can um, take the jQuery version of ToDoMVC and then take out jQuery and use just plain JavaScript. So what your goal is, you want to ultimately remove jQuery completely, but you want the features to stay the same.
right.
And that is also quite an exhaustive exercise if you want to do that. Um,
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds that would really help. Um, Kill quite a few birds with one stone in a way. Yeah,
mhm.
that would be that's super. Yeah,
Yep. So just some ideas. And uh, if you're watching, I mean, you don't have to do these things, but if you desire that more practice, then those could be good things to do.
yeah, super. That's a great idea. Thanks for that. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Adil, if you do have any questions that come up, just let me know, and I'll be sure to get to you.
Yeah, super. Thanks.
Next, I think we have Andrew. Andrew, you there?
Yes, I am.
Um,
New to
so
Hangouts, sorry.
oh yeah, so where are you at in the material, and do you have any questions about where you're at so far?
I finished practical JavaScript. and I moved on to the premium. I finished the first and second videos, but I recognized that more in depth.
You finish which videos?
Oh, sorry, the first and second videos of the
Okay.
premium. And I felt more in depth was needed, obviously. I've kind of learned by listening to other questions and stuff. Like I've been listening to the office hours from the beginning at work. So I understood that I had to go back. So I'm going through the entire practical thing again. I've made it to version 5. And it makes much more sense now, and I can produce this code up to that point mostly by myself, which is going to say, so your course is fantastic. I thank you very much for that. I spent a lot of extra time and money on other courses, and I was looking for that specific course that, like with my Japanese learning, the one course that I would needed, and everything else is garbage. And I basically found that for this, so that's what I was looking for. So thank you for that. And as for the questions, I have a couple of questions, but they're more general questions. So I think they'd probably be better for the end or something. They're not so much curriculum based, because so far all my questions have been answered by going back and reviewing.
Let's go through the questions. We have a lot of time. I think it's just Joe. Joe, are you the last person there? Is that you? I think it's just Joe left.
Yeah, it's Joe.
Okay. Joe, find the light switch. It's really dark. It's really dark in your room. Yeah, so we're gonna have a lot of time, so we should just go through your questions.
Okay, hopefully they're not useless. They may have already been answered, actually. I think you already just answered one now. I was going to ask if there's more course content that you're going to be producing, but it seems to be the case.
Yes, there's
Which
always new stuff coming up.
I like that, because I want to keep learning, although I understand that it seems that at some point tutorials and you just got to start working off what you've learned. So you answered that. I can't make morning accountability meetings because I have a full-time job. From the office meeting or office hours that I remember listening to, it sounded like you once had that yourself. So I'm sure you know what that's like. You had that full-time annoying job in the way of your coding. So I'm going to use these as an accountability every week. That came across stupid, didn't it?
No. I understand.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
So in regards to that, at the end of the year, I noticed, like, obviously for your holidays, like the stat days, you won't have meetings for those, but I will have 2 weeks off or so at the end of the year. Will you be holding accountability in the morning of those days, just for the regular days?
Yeah. Yes. So to provide context, so for premium members, we have this daily accountability meeting that you can join, and so that's what Andrew's talking about. I know a lot of people watching this are just in practical JavaScript, so they've not heard of that before. So I will be at most of them. I do join most of them, and if I am not there, there's someone else there. So I imagine that they're all gonna happen, even like on Christmas Day. There's probably gonna be someone there, because some people like don't sell. The group is really very international, and some people don't celebrate Christmas. So I think someone will be there.
Okay.
And I will probably be there too.
All right, awesome. It'll give me a chance to join in on those. I figured I'd be able to do it on stats during the regular days of the year too, because obviously I wouldn't work.
What do you mean on
statutory holidays?
Oh, statutory. Okay, got it.
Because those are the only days I would have the day off, right? Because I work full time. Stupid job. Anyways, one last question then. I sent a message to you there about and it included the mention of WordPress and stuff, and I noticed a lot of sites seem to point out what to do to make coding, to make money doing coding. And so many answers are like learn WordPress and basic HTML, CSS, and go around in the city offering to make web pages and stuff, and learning that way and making money. But I don't like the simplistic, just, I don't know, something about it feels wrong. What do you think about that?
So can you rephrase the question? So far what I've grasped is that someone said that you can make money making WordPress sites. So do you just want my thoughts on that statement?
Partially that, and these courses have also implied that you make client bases off of going out in the public, talking to the different people at their doors and setting up a business. But for some reason, I don't know, it just seems like a yes, basically what do you think of that?
What I think. Okay, so this is very first of all, this is very off topic, but
Sorry. You don't have to.
but that's okay. I'll answer it because I think it's a funny question. Um, so I uh the the caveat here is I don't know anything really. I have no experience selling WordPress sites, so I can give you my very uninformed reaction. Is that and you said it's courses that are telling you this?
Oh yeah, even like there's courses called complete WordPress course and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
Business course.
I think there are a lot of courses telling you how to make money on the internet, and they most certainly, all of them are probably making it seem easier than it actually is. But that's how they sell you the course. That's my first thought on how to make money online courses. Just be skeptical. But having said that, I don't know. I haven't tried going door to door trying to sell WordPress sites. I think that you could have some luck doing it, but I don't know. But just be skeptical. That's my reaction. I think most people learning how to, in terms of the relation to watching code, it's not really a great way to learn how to program. Like making WordPress sites is not going to make you better at programming. It's
Okay,
gonna
so
make you better
basically you
at
kind of answer it because I don't want to take the easy way. I like this course a lot, and I like this mindset, understanding the deeper things.
Mhm.
And so it does seem like it would be unenjoyable to pursue that route. I think
Yeah, I
WordPress
mean,
is so simple.
I think WordPress is not so simple. You can do a lot of really crazy stuff with it, and get into like customizations and stuff and make plugins, and I think that is kind of interesting. So if you make like a WordPress plugin and sell that plugin, you can actually there are people making a lot of money doing that. But that's not making WordPress sites for individual people. It's quite different. And you I think you would be able to probably learn something about programming by doing that. Not JavaScript stuff, but you would learn a lot about WordPress and PHP. I'm guessing I might be really far off. So I think there are ways to get good at programming while doing WordPress, but not in the way that not the watching code style stuff where it's like very JavaScript heavy kind of stuff. I mean, if you want to make money with the skills you would learn at watching code, I think the most common way is people end up finding a job where they're a developer, like a front end developer, back end developer, or just a generalist developer, or a full stack developer.
Yeah, I've heard pretty much what you think of that.
So you could do that. That's pretty common. And then it's a lot hard. I think it's a lot harder to make money on your own if you don't want to work for a company and follow the traditional route as a programmer, because you need to find people that want actual programming stuff and not just I'm a business, I need a website, right? That's a WordPress job or a Squarespace job. But small businesses generally don't need people to actually do programming for them. And so it can be hard to get clients if you're doing like building web applications. And I wouldn't know the first thing about that, but that's something that people do. It's not as common as just getting a job. And then the least common thing is actually, building a web application for yourself and starting your own business, right? And that's very uncommon, but it probably won't work out, but if it does, it can be really rewarding and because you do exactly what you want. So that's my very amateurish view on how to make money.
It rings true though.
Online.
Yeah, because I noticed you mentioned a lot in your past videos about focusing. So that's what I'm gonna do. One thing is I get obsessive with focus, so I do have to watch it. I don't get obsessive on focusing something else.
Mm.
But that's what I'm gonna do with the course is focus really hard. So I figured that this is probably the best route by far for me, anyways. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I think for most people that are trying to like change their career and just like have a better life
that's it.
and do more interesting work, um, the thing you want to focus on is just getting better at programming. And if you do that, everything else becomes a lot more doable. It doesn't become easy, but it becomes like more within your grasp. Like you can just get you suddenly a lot of jobs that were not accessible to you become accessible. Um, a lot of things that you would want to build, maybe if you did want to start a company or be a consultant or something, become more possible. But you have to be good at programming to do that. Um, selling the dream, building WordPress sites is really I think it's a really appealing story because you don't really need to know anything. It's much more, but you do need to know something about sales and just grit, and like you just have to grind it out, and like
And
right,
conning
it's
people.
yeah, and partially conning people, because I mean a lot of things that you would charge for a WordPress site, you basically charge a premium on top of it, but really they should probably just use Squarespace. Right? Like probably that would make everyone better off. So then each time they want to, add a silly logo, they don't have to ask you to do it. And you don't have to ignore them and feel guilty. So
Okay, perfect.
so I think there are a lot of people trying to like sell I mean just generally whenever you have a business or like a culture of courses teaching you how to do the thing that um that's something that makes money, like be really skeptical. Like you're seeing it right now with a lot of stuff in online. You're seeing it with how to trade Bitcoin right now, and we saw it with flipping houses in the 2000s. And yeah, you see this pattern. Once you've been around long enough, you start to notice common threads between different how to make money online schemes.
Right.
It's often the case that teaching people how to make money is more profitable, um, which is really funny and sad. Yeah. Okay, so we're never going to talk about that topic again. Sorry for people that had to listen to that. If I saved you from another how to make money online course, then if I saved one person, then I think that I feel that I was forgiven for wasting everyone else's time. Andrew, do you have any other questions?
Kind of, but I think if anybody else has anything more important to ask, they should.
Let's hear it. What's the next kinda?
It's not WordPress. No, just you probably already answered it at some point. The general amount of time that is a good amount of time to be spending if you're working full time on the course. Like I try to get as much time as I can. Sometimes I can manage like 3 hours or
Mm.
something like that, but I don't
Yep.
really know.
I really like this question, and I think I think James I know is working full time and has been doing this for quite a while. So maybe he can add something on that. But I really like this question because it's not a very similar question, which is how long does it take to finish? Which is not my favorite question. But because it's going to vary a lot depending on who you are and like what your background is, and basically I can't really tell you. But the amount of time, so basically the question to rephrase, because I kind of I've rambled a bit, is like if you're working full time, what would be a good chunk to spend learning programming each day? And I think I'll start by saying what's the minimum amount of time that you can make a lot of progress with, because I think a lot of people obsess and get upset that they don't have 3 hours a day, which nobody has. I think if you a bare minimum, if you can spend 30 minutes a day, you can make significant progress if you do it every day over a long period of time. If you do it an hour a day, you can make a lot of progress a little bit faster and over a little less long period of time, but still quite a long period of time, not 3 months, for example, which is the horizon everyone has in their minds. Personally, I learned programming while having a full-time job, just like you, Andrew, and James. And for me, I don't know. It's hard to say, but I didn't really feel comfortable until like maybe a year or two of doing that, and it was like an hour as almost every day. So that's one example, but I think I'm like, compared to James, I'm quite slow, because I think James is a little bit, and James can talk about his experience, but yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer, if you can set aside an hour a day, then it will happen. It's just a matter of time, and don't bank on it happening on a given date, because then you'll go crazy. Because it's probably not going to happen on that date. Just like when I often say that, oh, I'm going to have this video released on this day, and then it takes longer, and then everyone feels bad, and I get a lot of complaints and stuff. So don't do that to yourself, but just try to put in consistent effort over a long period of time, and I promise you it will work out. But I don't know when. James, you want to add? I mean, because from your very recent experience, like you kind of went through this, and you're going through this.
Yeah, and learning, I kind of try and keep the mindset that you're never done learning, and so if you can create a realistic and kind of sensible habit, and go through your daily routine the way you normally do it, and build this habit into it on a daily basis, that's when you see your most progress. I probably would do, I'd say I do anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours, couple days throughout the week. I'd say maybe 3 to 4 days a week, and then on the weekends, if I have extra time, you put a couple hours in there too. It was really, in my opinion, it was staying focused and not trying to learn everything in that period of time. It was like, okay, let's just attack a small chunk of code, let's understand it really thoroughly, and then let's put it down. Let's put the code down, not worry about it. I'll pick it up tomorrow, and I'll go to the next thing. It was almost like that was the point where I kind of started feeling more comfortable too, because you don't feel like you have the pressure of needing to figure everything out that day. It's a long process in the learning journey. So once I started doing more JavaScript work at work, that's when learning and work started converging. And so I'd say I spend a lot more time now doing it and thinking about it. But at first, couple hours, and just fit it into your schedule, just like you would exercise.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the key for me, is to think of it like workout time, and just treat it like that.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong. There's no. Some people may get the bulk of their work done just on one day a week or something like that. If it works for you, it works for you. I like to kind of just stay consistent with it, like Gordon said. But it's just finding that balance in your life.
Yeah. Oh, so then talking more about minimums, I think 30 minutes a day is like a minimum. I think if you're gonna work on like one, like you can't work 10 minutes a day. That's not
No.
that's not really good. It's honestly not gonna work. But in terms of like the number of the most important thing is that you do something every week. So even if you're working 1 day a week, you can still make progress. Obviously, it's not as good as 7 days a week, but if you've just a lot of stuff going on, if you can maintain 1 day a week, I think you should do that. And then obviously, if everything on top of that is even better. But don't feel like don't feel like, oh my God, I can't do 3 hours like 5 days a week. Screw it. Like that's really not, you'll never have that kind of time ever over a consistently long period of time. So just have lower expectations.
And if you don't get to it that day, yeah, it's something that, yeah, maybe I should have got to it, but don't beat yourself up over it. Just pick back up the next day. And yeah, it's like you kind of say, have lower your expectations a little bit and just kind of enjoy the process of learning and getting to know everything at a detailed level and get to know something really well. And instead of, trying to move on to the next topic or something like that. So I do agree that, you should spend a lot of your time, moving forward, but, once you get to know something very well, don't get it to know it on a superficial level, just like you always say, Gordon.
Yep. Wait, James, can you give Andrew like a little sense of like when you started learning and how you started to feel about code and like your confidence over time?
Yeah. I mean, when watching code originally started, I mean, I didn't know really anything, and it's kind of unbelievable to see the progress over the last year. Really, I would say since last Thanksgiving, just the trajectory has gone. Once you just kind of hammered down the foundations, it just liberates you, makes you understand things a little bit more differently. And especially when you go back to the foundational things to reinforce things that you've learned, it's kind of unbelievable just because you pick up on different things and you see it in a different light, rather than just learning it for the first time. But anyway, my progress, I'd say over initially it was kind of I was definitely nervous to kind of get into the code. I was nervous to submit my code to you, Gordon, if like for any challenges or anything like that, because it was just a vulnerable state. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I wasn't confident in it. But over a period of time, things just get better. Things start clicking and you start learning more, and it's really the thing that I credit the most, aside from the videos, but is reading code 100%. I mean, I cannot be more of an advocate of reading code. I really can't. I think it's been fantastic. And the Accounting JS series, reading that code base, I would say was one of the things that really put me over that initial edge, and got me to another step in my in growing my knowledge. And now, yeah, things have definitely come a lot easier. You can pick up on things a lot quicker. You can read something and have the confidence in knowing how to apply it, or just look at a code base and be like, okay, I understand what's going on here. Now I have an opinion on whether I would do it that way or not, which is crazy to think, because I was like, not even near that. Like last year and, a year and a half ago, I was kind of worried about even just understanding what was going on. Now I'm sometimes being a little snooty about things like, why would you do it that way? No, but anyway, it's been a really cool experience. Hopefully I answered that question. I kind of went off on a tangent.
Yeah, I think it's good to. I think what you said is good. And I think what's important for people to keep in mind is the time horizon is like what James was talking about. It wasn't like 2 or 3 months. It was a year.
A year and a half.
So,
no,
yeah,
definitely more than that. Yeah, and it could take longer. It could be shorter. It's just have to just enjoy the ride. Just ride it out. No, it's not going to happen overnight. But go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, and then for me it was even longer, and that's why I said I was a little bit slower than James. I think it's because I didn't have Watch and Code to help me. But yeah, I mean, from when I started to get to how good James is today, I think took me about 3 years, probably, I would say. So, if you've been battling it for a couple of years, don't give up. You can still do it.
Thank you. Actually, I really appreciate your experience there. I started about 3 months ago, but I was looking through a ton of different resources like Udemy and stuff as is usual. I really appreciate your answer there.
Yeah, and then the last thing to do, the last thing I mention is there's certain things that can really help your trajectory. One is being consistent. It's probably the most important thing. Even if you do the most ridiculously silly stuff, like I did a lot of dumb things and wasted a lot of time. Even if you do everything wrong, if you're consistent every day, you'll still make it work. But you don't want to do those dumb things if you don't have to. so being consistent kind of fixes everything. But the next level of sophistication is that you do things a little bit more intelligently. And don't like there are a couple of things I think I see people do a lot is they jump course to course and they never finish anything. And I'll say this even about non-Watch and Code stuff. If you're doing non-Watch and Code stuff and you're like, oh, should I do Watch and Code or not? You should think about finishing what you started, whatever it is. And not just being like, oh, Watch and Code is going to be the next thing and then the next thing, because that mentality doesn't really work very well. And I don't know, like Andrew, you mentioned this like desire to find this like magical course that fixes everything, and that made me a little bit worried because I think that it can be very counterproductive, because then you feel like the hard part is to find the course.
Can I clarify that?
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And then that encourages course jumping, because people are like, oh, I didn't find it, and then because like you could really learn programming in a lot of different ways. Like you don't have to use Watch and Code. I think Watch and Code, I'm biased of course, but I think it makes it teaches things I think are really important and much earlier, and I think teaches a lot of things that other places don't teach. But you can still get pretty good at programming without Watch and Code. Like if you went through 10 courses to find Watch and Code, maybe it's a good thing. But maybe if you just stuck with what you were doing, you would have made you wouldn't be at the exact same spot, but you'd make enough progress. You'd make enough forward progress, and that's the most important thing.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I was just thinking, for example, in my studies for Japanese, I found that I was looking at different methods, going through all this stuff, and finally one day I fell across a guy called Japanese Level Up. Anyways, what was
the name?
It was Japanese Level Up.
Okay.
Well, when I finally found that website, what I had learned in 5 years of meandering, I learned far more than that in 1 year. Far more than that. So I kind of developed a sense for when things are going to be kind of a waste of my time at least I feel. And so what I was basically saying is I found what's not a waste of my time right now. So that's what I was getting at.
Yep.
Yeah, and one more thing too, to go off of, not necessarily wasting your time, but just maximizing your efficiency within that, hour, time period that you have, during the week or whatever. But you're not necessarily worrying about the tooling or things that like can easily distract someone new. What was awesome with Gordon is you really stress like the foundations, like get it right by just learning what's at the root of something. Don't worry about like, the WordPress things like setting up a site or doing all that stuff. Like learn how, what goes on behind the scenes. But anyway, yeah, let's get to Joe.
Okay.
Right.
Andrew, do you have anything else?
I can wait.
Okay,
I'm always full of questions. I'll wait.
We'll go to Joe. He says all good, but he's being polite. I would be really frustrated if I were Joe.
Really? No, honestly, I'm like,
personally, I would be.
I can appreciate that, but I have an appreciation for patience. Like, this discussion reinforces it because you can't give a plant all the water it needs in one day. You have to water it, over the course of years, and it makes perfect sense to me. So I'm on board. I like that. That's the philosophy.
Yeah, and you can't miss a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you live in Florida, then you can just not ever water it.
Like I'm working too, and I got like time can be an issue. Like some days, I'm like I'll get off work and I'll be like, I'm gonna go watching code, and I'll like pass out, and it's okay because I'll do it in the morning before I go to work, or I'll get to it another day. But like I've been being consistent because I've gotten to a point in my life where I can appreciate what consistency actually does. So definitely good to hear this coming out of like having the question from Nexus and then the return from both you guys, James, Gordon. So far I've only watched the first video, and what I've been doing of premium. Okay. So I just jumped into premium, and yeah, the first main video being an hour, 70 minutes, and being, I don't know, like I really appreciated it. Like I don't really have questions right now because I'm still in the process of doing what the video suggests you do. So I've got the README text. I've been kind of like hanging on to Plunker for sentimental reasons, but I like moved to GitHub just to be on the page with the videos and all that good stuff. And I basically I have the code in the GitHub, and I basically watched the video through. I watched it halfway through on a night I came home from work, and then I said, okay, I kind of see where it's going, and then I watched the whole thing, and then I basically did what it suggested, which is to try to go through the code yourself. Well, I guess I watched the video because it says to do that before somehow, but basically I've gone through the process. I have Plunker notes on, I have those notes for the process for reading code. And I'm using Plunker as like a notepad kind of. And I basically took each step and I wrote down like notes on everything that I felt I was getting from the code. Like you said, everything that didn't seem familiar and everything that seemed familiar, and so on and so forth. And like what I realized is I realized how much of this code doesn't make sense, especially coming from practical JavaScript, where you feel by the end of practical JavaScript, you feel like everything kind of came together, because you feel like you start a program, but then you get to the premium and you're like, you're seeing all kinds of things that you haven't seen before, especially if you haven't really done any other courses. And But at the same time, I saw like the syntax was making sense to me, like the formatting made sense. So even if I didn't understand something, I knew where it started and ended, you know. And I started going back to practical JavaScript and using everything that I learned to kind of try and make as much sense of it as I could. And, you know, it makes sense to me that it doesn't make sense yet, you know. And I kind of, if you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like, I don't feel.
I think it's important because like a lot of programming is you're always trying to figure out the boundary of your limits. Like where are those limits, and then where do I need to? Because where those limits are, you need to do more work to, you know, push it forward so you can understand that next tier of stuff. It's a very subtle skill because most people are really bad at it. Most people are like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't get it, right? Like they're not thinking about like, oh, like this part, I don't know what's happening, but this is, you know, kind of strategy I can use to figure it out, or, you know, how can I kind of slide my way in and attack this problem through the part that I do know, and then the rest will illuminate and like trust that's going to happen, right? So what you're seeing is, you know, that's exactly what you're describing, Joe, and that skill and that experience never goes away. You're always going to be doing that, because the next thing, like for example in Accounting.js, you're gonna look at it again and you're gonna be like, I don't know this stuff. But it's really good for you to, and that's why I always tell people before I teach the material, when we're reading a code base, I tell people to look at it, because I want to know what they don't know. Like I want them to be very clear and like, oh man, I don't know this, I don't know that. So then they know which parts to pay attention to when I do talk about them. But they also get a chance to kind of apply what they do know and try to think about how it relates to all this new stuff.
Okay. Well, I do remember. Yeah, it's the second video says to take like an hour or so to review. Like the notes above the second video say take an hour or so to review the code again before you watch this video. So that's kind of where I'm at. And yeah, you know, I definitely made a solid list of the stuff that I don't really understand by just going through the code, but then using the stuff that I do understand, I can make inferences, or I feel like I feel like it's overwhelming to look at, but upon second glance, I feel like the stuff I learned in practical JavaScript actually gives me a way to kind of get my bearings in what I'm looking at. Mm-hmm. So I feel I'm not feeling overwhelmed looking at that code. I feel like, you know, like it's almost like getting to that point kind of made me like see what you're doing. You know, you're like, you are literally trying to teach us to, like in practical JavaScript, you kind of build something, but in this, you're literally showing us how to piece it apart, you know, and how understanding how much of it you actually know helps you break it apart. So I feel pretty good about it. I don't have any specific questions yet, because I still feel like I need to like give myself a shot at reading the code and then maybe move forward through the next video, and then anything I have issues with, I'll bring to the table.
Okay. Sweet. And Joe, I love seeing you every week. I think it's awesome. I love that consistency. So
yeah.
Yeah, even if you do the dumbest stuff, as long as you're consistent, it'll all work out. But I'm not, Joe, you're doing the opposite of that. The dumbest stuff, you're not doing that. And if you do consistently stuff that makes sense, like you'll be way faster than, just way more effective than like I was, for example. So yeah, I think in case you're wondering, like a lot of the mistakes I talk about, I speak from experience, because I did them myself. And so probably every kind of dumb thing I probably should take responsibility for, and I actually did them myself.
I'm really appreciative of the course, Gordon, because I feel like you said it, you know, but I like the course like I get the feeling from watching the videos that this is someone who learned coding by themselves and decided that no one else should have to go through this process and sort of like navigation to it. And like I feel that from just like everything I've gone through so far, and just the nature of like your philosophy and the process. Like, once again, I commend you on doing a really awesome thing for people who want to learn.
Oh, thanks, Joe. So a preview for people that are watching but that are shy and haven't called in yet. Joe, James, and Andrew and Adil, I want to ask about, because I feel like this conversation is too positive, and that makes me worried. When we go off the air, I want just the troll side of you to come out, like all the things you hate, and we can have an open discussion about that. So just be like in a negative, pissy mood, and then complain to me, and you can just be as harsh as you want, since we're not gonna broadcast that part, because I just feel like this has been too positive. There's always things that we could get better at, including especially me. Okay, so I think those are all the questions so far, right? Andrew, do you have additional questions?
Oh, I'm full of questions. The question is whether you want to hear them right now.
Yeah, so how about this? We'll give you one more question, and then we'll end the broadcast, and then we'll invite all the complaints and the haters. If you're watching, you should sign on after we go off the air. But for now, we'll entertain one last question on the air. Does that sound good?
Perfect. One simple question, actually. I know you're not a big fan of doing frameworks and stuff like that, and you explain it. It's perfectly understandable, especially since they seem to be outdated. So I understand why that one course is no longer available. They change continuously. But what about, and perhaps it's irrelevant because JavaScript, learning that in depth seems to maybe counter any need for anything else. But are you planning on maybe in any way doing super weird JavaScript stuff, or the C language, or anything like that? Just you want to
yeah. So I think the best way to answer that question is to explain what my intention is. The intention is that you are able to work with increasingly more difficult programs, and not difficult for the sake of being difficult. Like theoretically, I made this really complicated for no reason. Like that you might do in academia, for example. Maybe you would do stuff like that. I would want you to be able to handle more and more difficult programs that are actually of practical value. So doing weird stuff is, probably won't intersect with my intentions. Doing the C language probably won't intersect with my motivations. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and that makes sense. It is a whole different language, and honestly, I suppose as long as you understand how one full language works, you can figure out another.
Yep.
I just thought because maybe regular C is so like close to machine that it was a possibility, but in the end, I assume you can learn that yourself once you've mastered something like
you absolutely can.
What do you call it? The premium content. So
yeah, learning C, you absolutely can if you want to do that. Most of the stuff all holds true still, and you'll see a lot of similarities with different languages, including JavaScript. So, but yeah, if you need to do that, sure, you should do that. But most people, I don't find really need to do that. For most people, learning one language is where you get. You don't have to learn multiple languages to get better at programming. I think it can be. It's almost like a nice to have, I think, just because you can see just a different way of doing things, and I think that can be valuable. but I think that becomes valuable once you know the first language really, really well. Because if you don't, then you're actually learning programming while you're learning two languages, and that you should do one thing at a time. So for example, when you learn one language very, very well, you can go to any other language and be like, what is the equivalent in the language I know? You know, what is the equivalent in this new language? And you can have that thought. You can get an answer. But if you don't know anything, you're like, I don't know anything. How do I translate to this other thing I don't know anything about? That's not very productive. And a lot of people try to do that, and it's not a good use of time. I think they should wait a little bit, and then when they need to, they can do that. And also naturally, sometimes you end up needing to learn another language, and obviously that's a good time to learn another language. But if you just want to get better at programming, it's really honestly, I don't think it's necessary. And you will, I don't know, maybe I'll get comments about people disagree with me, but there are a lot of people that disagree with me on this. So, but that's okay. Okay, so that was Andrew's last question, and so we'll go off the air and have a chat about things that we all hate about watching code and things that are annoying. And so if you want to join that, then you want to call into the Hangout, and I'd love to hear your suggestions and your complaints. So call in if you're watching, and yeah, hope to see you all next week. And thanks a lot for joining and spending your time here. I hope it was useful.